Welcome to Queerly Speaking. I'm your host, Nat Jones, and together my wife and I will navigate the complex intersections of faith, identity, love, and resilience. In each episode, we'll share stories of heartbreak, healing, and hope from individuals who were told they didn't belong in the very spaces that shaped us. Welcome back to Queerly Speaking.
Good morning, babe.
Good morning. We are very excited to talk to you guys a little bit about a journey that we've started recently, more of a recent start. But emphasis on recent, no news, but just journey. And that is starting to prepare to start our own family. So we are beyond excited. We'll have a lot of updates to share, and then also just a lot of content in general. And we wanted to share this because we think it's important. We actually know personally many couples, queer and straight, but really more of an emphasis on queer couples that are going through the fertility journey and making a lot of decisions. So we think it's important to share that journey. I think maybe in the generation prior to us, there wasn't really a lot of openness and vulnerability around that because of how much shame was attributed to not being able to have kids. So I think that's really important that we open up and we kind of talk about what that looks like and how that journey is different for us than it probably is for some of our other friends who are in a heterosexual relationship. So to get started, babe, let's go for you first. So tell us, when you were younger, did you see yourself having kids? Did you want kids? Did you think about it?
No, I didn't. I think most people that know me would probably be like, oh, she always said she didn't want kids. And that didn't really change until probably I was in my mid-20s, maybe. I would like the record to show before we got together, but everyone credits you for it. But I'll take it because I am excited to do that journey with you. But
although you did decide before me, just to be clear.
I did, yeah. And I only bring that up because I think in a minute I'll kind of get there. But no, I didn't. I did not want to be a mother growing up. I am the youngest of my siblings by a long shot. There's a minimum 10-year age gap between us, maximum 25-year age gap. So much different than your story. Not a lot of small children.
25 years in between yourself and your oldest sister.
Yep. And then 10 years between me and my sister's closest to me in age.
Okay.
So totally different than you. Not a lot of kids running around the house at the same time, until a little bit later. My sisters had kids, and so that did kind of change, but just a different dynamic growing up sibling-wise, not really around a lot of babies and things like that. I didn't have a great relationship with my parents growing up. There was, a lot of issues with addiction and mental health challenges in my family as a kid. So it wasn't, I wouldn't describe it as like a nurturing environment, maybe. Not, in the way I think when I talk to people and, some of our closest friends, it's like they are so close with their parents. They always kind of knew as kids, like, oh, I really, I want to be a parent. I want to recreate this type of relationship and all that. I think you get inspiration from seeing your parents. And although I do love my parents and I do maintain relationship with them and, really admire their growth and all that stuff. That was not the case for me growing up. It's quite the opposite.
I wanted to be a part.
Hi, Ruru. Yeah, you want to talk about it too? Quite the opposite, I would say. So I think just kind of seeing that and growing up in kind of a tumultuous household and, it was chaotic and all of that stuff. You're not really looking to expand that. Then I think it's multi-layered, right? Like people say, and we do know this to be true, that mental health and addiction are both genetic. Your predisposition for those things are both genetic. So I think that's an extra layer, right? It's like I suffered, it seems like an extreme word to use, but for lack of a better word, like suffered from the consequences of other people having that. Like if I know, So if I know that I'm predisposed to having those things as well, like I don't want to risk having a family and giving them that. So I think that was kind of challenge number one. And secondly, coming off of that, I am wildly different from my family members. And we are really close, especially my sisters are my absolute best friends, but just my interests are different than them and my parents and everyone from my whole family, and my personality is really different than everyone. So that kind of made me, I feel like, stand out or feel a little bit separated growing up.
Is that because you're funnier than everyone else, or
Thank you, honey. I think so.
or that's the running joke?
But I kind of joke about this, but I am a Taurus, and one of my key personality traits of that zodiac sign, which I think I do relate to, and I'm not really like obsessed with that type of stuff, but is vanity. And I do think I have that. I mean, growing up as a kid,
vanity is not the same thing as having the interest that you have.
Yeah, it's not, but there is a layer to my personality. And I'm not vain, but I do care a lot about what people think about me. I do care a lot about my appearance. I do want to kind of keep up appearances, personality wise and physically and all that stuff. Like that is important to me. And there were comments made a lot to me growing up. I don't think you'll ever have kids. Like, you're too selfish. And you care about yourself too much. Like, how would you give that attention to someone else? Like, I just don't see it.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Imagine telling a child that.
I mean, it would mostly be my parents really that would say that. And I think there was a layer to me as a kid or as a teenager or whatever, where I was selfish because I had a really strong sense of awareness. Like, I'm not interested in this life, like this pattern of what I'm growing up in and things that we see. And some of it was generational. I mean, they're just problems, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm not interested in this. I'm removing myself. I mean, I got a job when I was 14. Like, I was always, and my sisters were the same, like always had jobs, always out of the house, like with their friends. The least amount of time I could spend around my family and my own house, the better, really.
Would you say it's true that also from a younger age, you quickly like took over the parenting role of yourself because you had to be very independent?
Yeah, I would say that was true. But my sister was the closest to me in age. We were the only ones who ever lived in the house as kids at the same time. And she took on, a major part of that role in having to raise me and all that. And then she had, my nieces and nephews. So I think I also saw that. It's like, oh, that's another burden. It was just overwhelming. Like, I wasn't really seeing an example of peace in that role. So it just didn't really appeal to me. And you're having your own parents say, like, you're too selfish. Like, you should never have a kid. And meanwhile, I'm thinking, like, I wouldn't really consider you selfless.
Right.
So it's kind of a bit confusing on that. And then I think I really just learned to lean into it because, it was like, okay, it's just easier to be like, yeah, I don't want to. You're right. And I took that as a negative, where the older I got, I really realized, like, it's okay to be selfish. It's okay that I isolated myself because I wanted a different life. It's okay that I have different interests. It's okay that I prioritize myself because, at that time, who else am I going to prioritize? You know what I mean?
Or who else is going to prioritize you?
Yeah,
especially during that time.
Exactly. So, now I kind of wear it as a badge of honor, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. I am different, and I am selfish, and I am all those things, but I'm really proud of what that's gotten me. And I think that really started to kind of kick in my, maybe mid-20s, where I was able to move out on my own. And I moved out when I was 18, but on my own, meaning like in my own apartment by myself that I paid for and I furnished and I, and even seeing me progress in my career, I think those things started to make me realize, like, oh, being quote unquote selfish is beneficial and it is good, and it's not to be weaponized against me as it has in the past. And I kind of created it, grew to have a sense of pride in that. And then I realized, how different I was. Again, I was out and I would go drinking with my friends and stuff. And it's like, okay, I don't have a drinking problem. So kind of the stress of, I think when you grow up in that, there's a sense, or at least I felt, I can't speak for everyone, but a sense of almost like impending doom, because you do hear that, like, it's genetic. And that was weaponized against me also. Like, but don't drink. Alcoholism runs in the family. It's like, okay, but there's a lot of people who can drink and be fine. And, sure. Did I overdo it a few times? Definitely. And, could I have drank less in college? For sure. It's not to say that I don't have regrets about that, but I think I just learned to manage my own behavior. Like, oh, I actually can be out in the world, and those things don't define me. And being away really just kind of helped me see myself, I feel like, for who I really am and all those characteristics. And then I sort of realized, like, okay, yeah, if I found the right person, like, I would be open to do this. I see my sisters grew up the same way, had the same experiences that I did, and they are absolutely wonderful mothers. So I was kind of able to see, like, okay, they've broken the cycle. Okay, then my other sister did it. She's broken the cycle too. okay, I'm on my own and I'm already breaking the cycle. I already live differently than my family members. And then coincidentally that time, shortly after I did meet you, and then I think once you meet someone, it really does become obvious. Like I came in with a layer of, okay, I do want to be a mother and I really want that journey. And then it's so much more when you meet someone and now it's, oh, I want to be a mother to your children. You know, I really want us to do that together. I think it's kind of the missing piece, but
For sure.
yeah, it was kind of a long-winded answer, but it grew on me.
Yeah. No, I think that's the perfect answer. It's the true answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I can imagine when you're a child and because you like, just to give a little context, because you like makeup, because you like doing your hair, because you like doing your nail. What age did you start doing your nails?
Oh, listen, one thing about me, I've always been a hustler. Okay. I was like walking pets, like pet sitting a couple times. And it also really worked out to my advantage. I touched on this a minute ago, but my sister had my oldest nephew when I was 7. So obviously not when he was newborn, but when he was little, I was kind of old enough to babysit. So I'd be, she'd pay me. I was having, I was like swindling my grandma for money. I was having multiple streams of income coming. And I think I bought my first like little acrylic, like that Kiss nail set, if you know, from Walgreens. Probably 5th grade. I was getting my nails done regularly at the salon, but then I would be doing girls' nails on the playground as well.
Oh my God. How old are you in 5th grade?
9, 10.
Okay. So you can see like those are some of the reasons why. Is there anything vain about that? Is there anything wrong with that? No. But was it different than your other family members? Yes. That's okay.
Yeah.
But it just, which I don't want to harp on this, but like it goes to show like the shit we say to our kids is really important.
Yeah.
Like you're in your late 20s trying to decide if you want children because you've like one of the reasons, right? It's one of the factors that impacted you is, am I selfish? Is this okay? Am I going to be a good mom? And you just like, wow. And it's really on my mind right now as we're starting this journey.
Yeah,
and I'm thinking about like, are we going to screw kids up or we are going to like, they are, of course, there's going to be something.
They're going to therapy for something we said
For
before.
sure.
It's just trying to mitigate what it might be for.
Yeah. And just be like really conscious of that. So I just like have that on my mind so much, but yeah. So all that to say, there were a couple of silly reasons why people in your family members might say that. And it's just like, I want to knock them upside the head.
Yeah, you don't realize, I think, how much, we talk about this really, really every episode, but how much like those little comments just kind of weigh on you. And it's so complicated, right? Like, totally different situation, obviously, with your parents, but even when it's just kind of interesting that I think, I was really hurt by maybe my mom saying I'm too selfish to have a child. Like that really hurt me and really weighed on me for a long time. But meanwhile, as a kid, like I didn't even have respect we were not close at all. We were not close. And, that's a story kind of to get in maybe for another time, but it's just interesting. Like you still have that innate, like it's almost like there's still something in you that's like, okay, but you're my mom. Like, why would you say that?
Right. And you almost looking back, given the situation, it's like, well, there's a lot of projection going on.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you missed that exactly.
Yeah, you kind of get clarity as you're older, right? You're like, oh, okay, you were really saying this because
you were feeling that probably by yourself.
X, Y, and Z, and
yeah,
then you learn. But
for sure.
But now I do. I'm very excited.
3 kids, right? Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're still thinking about that. But what about you, babe? Growing up with siblings and with babies in the house and the church and your parents and all that stuff. How did that kind of play into you as a kid?
How did it not play into me as a kid? Oh man. I'm not sure how this correlates, but the first thing that comes to my mind is like, well, I didn't really play with Barbie dolls, didn't like them. And I didn't really play with baby dolls very much, except, gosh, how old was I? So when we were at the Blue House, sharing a room with my sister, I don't know, probably like 11 or 12.
I love how, not to interrupt, it's so interesting to me. I don't realize how big of a time permanence school place, like going to public school place. Because
I know,
can
because
see,
I
like,
never know what age that is.
you're always like, how old are you? But so clearly for me, I'm like 3rd grade, 5th grade. Like every big major moment in my life, I'm like, I know exactly what grade
I was
in.
homeschooled, so every grade felt the same.
I know, but I could just see your wheels being like, okay, where was I?
I know. Whenever you and your friends are all like that, whenever you're like, yeah, you guys remember in 3rd grade, and I start having to count back, I'm like, what? Where was I?
I know. Do you still you used to have grades when you're homeschooled, right? Like, was it like a New Year's? Like,
Jesus Christ.
Well, I'm just saying.
Yes,
like,
you
how
had
do
to
not
turn
know?
in everything to the state.
No, not grades A, B, C, but like, but you were still like, but do you have summer break? I don't want to derail the conversation really too much about this.
Like, wow, how do you think I made it through college and got an MBA? No one ever graded me?
No, I mean, like, was your mom like, okay, welcome to 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade kids?
Yeah.
Okay, so you did have that.
But
it's just probably a little bit different because it's more like convoluted in your home.
Yeah.
Like,
Same desk, same space, same people.
same dining table.
Yeah, it all ran together. You know what I mean? Like, there wasn't like this, like, you remember when you wrote from middle school to,
right,
you know, whatever.
Right. You're like, we went from the kitchen island to the dining table.
Right. It's so different. So I never know. But
that's funny. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, honey.
Yeah, we digress. Anyway, I remember that I got one of my sister's baby dolls and I was like kind of holding it. And so I slept with it at night thinking like,
Aww.
okay, well, I don't know. I think I was just curious. Like, well, how does this feel? I don't know. And I was mortified because my dad came in the morning to wake us up for breakfast. He always made breakfast on Saturday, which is probably one of the reasons I love the mornings. And also I'm a morning person.
And you always make me breakfast.
Yes, I do. I think that's so important. I love that. We'll continue to do that for our whole family. And anyway, he like woke us up and I was like, oh yeah. And then I looked down, I'm so embarrassed because now I have this baby doll sitting in my arm. And I'm like, I remember just throwing it off the bed in front of him and my sister. And he's like, but I think he was just like so proud. He's like, it's okay. That's what you can play with, baby.
I know. I was going to say, they probably were like, this is the best day of our life.
I know. Well, and they made a big deal about it too. So I think that's also why I was embarrassed. But anyway, so I remember my experience. Like, I've always wanted a family. I've always wanted a family. The confusing part for me was like, growing up, there were only 2 options. You were the mom or the dad. And I didn't see myself being like the caring mom because I'm like,
like pregnant.
Carrying.
Oh, I thought you said the caring mom. I'm like, you're like the most caring person I've ever met.
Carrying mother.
Also, ideally, both your parents care about you.
Yes, but like in the belly. And then I could see myself be my dad or like a dad, but I'm like, and I identify a lot with that, but also nurturing. Like, my dad was very nurturing and very like, I didn't grow up in one of those households where the gender norms were like, men don't cry, they don't have emotion. I think my dad showed all of that.
That's great.
And so for me, it was like, there wasn't a huge divide between the nurturing part of a man and a woman. It was just like what they did. Like, my mom stayed at home, my dad worked. And just the interactions, like, I just identified more with that part of the parenting. And so it was confusing because I'd be like, yes, I want a family. But I don't know what that looks like for me. And then I would obviously be like, well, if that's my only choice, you know, I'm going to have to do that to have a family. But I could never see it. I could never picture it in my mind. And I don't know if other girls picture it in their mind, but I just never could see it. And yeah, so it was odd. There wasn't a lot of resolution there. It was just like, I know I really want a family, but I don't see that. So that's why I still kind of joke to this day about being the dad. and anti-gay people are really going to go heyday with that from this podcast, but that's the truth because those were the only options.
Yeah.
And so that's why I kind of still make funny jokes about that. But I did struggle to like find my place. And I think even with us, I've shared that a lot, that struggle to really find my place, which we can get into. But to answer your question, yes.
It's so interesting because and I say this to you all the time, and I really say this to anyone, as we kind of start the journey, you know, like I said, I really settled into, I am excited to be a mom, alongside you. It's kind of a no-brainer for me in carrying the baby. Like I do want to do that. Although the hypochondria that I have is really going to be a doozy, but we'll get to that later. But all of that is to say, it's so interesting with the dynamics that we talk about, because I think you're far more nurturing than I am. I mean, I think inherently, you know, you can be tough and so can I, but I think inherently, I mean, I even see that with our nieces and nephews who we're really close with all of them. We're so lucky. They're not all kids. 2 of them are in their mid-20s, but they're kids to me. And I mean, they're just absolutely amazing kids. But even since we've been together, the dynamic and relationship that they have with you versus me is different. I think it is. I mean, I can really see the way that they open up to you and are vulnerable with you and feel very comfortable with you doing that so innately. I mean, literally from like maybe the first day they met you. And sometimes I'm like, okay, what the fuck? Like I changed your diaper, but I'm also like, it's just all of that to say, it just speaks to your personality. I think even people, you know, so nurturing. So it's just interesting how that with kind of the societal norms that we touched on, you know, 2 episodes ago, I think makes you feel like, okay, which role is that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
well, for me, it was both.
Right.
For me growing up, it was both my mom and my dad.
Right.
I saw that equally. So that's why in that particular category, I'm like, other people will, you know, communicate with me about, you know, their family dynamics or their mom versus their dad and all this different stuff. And it's like, you know, their mom did all the chores, all the cooking, all the stuff, I mean, like the traditional whatever. And my mom did a lot of the cooking. I don't mean it like that because she stayed home with us, but and yeah, I guess my dad did like mowing the lawn. But in my mind, it doesn't work like that because I wanted to mow the lawn. And so I was just like,
that's actually great because you can pay me to go
people
outside.
mow the lawn, you know? So for me, it was great.
Honey. Nurturing people also take out the trash.
Okay. Everybody can take out the trash though. Really? That's not like you know what I mean? Like, and I do think that we had like boys' chores and girls' chores.
Yeah.
But I do think that for me specifically, because I like to do those types of things, I did do more of those than my sisters. My sisters were like, yeah, I don't want to do anything outside.
Guest star.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think there's many factors for that. Sure. But yeah, I consider that both a male and a female trait and a male and a female energy.
Yeah.
And there's different types of nurturing. Like to protect people is also nurturing.
Definitely.
Too. You know what I mean?
I think those are just inherent personality traits. But so let's talk a little bit about us kind of specifically. So that was, and we've touched on this in other episodes, like first date number 1, we're like with the hard hitters, right? It's like, do you want kids? Where do you stand on X, Y, and Z? Like answer correctly or there's the door. So we knew, you know, pretty immediately, like we want to get married, we want to have kids and all that stuff. Maybe not the first date, but you get the idea. But then it's just, I mean, how we talked about it. That was also obvious was, you know, I'm willing and excited to carry the baby and stuff. But do you want to talk a little bit more about kind of some conversations that came around that? I mean, we have explored options and talked about there's all types of ways to make a family and all that stuff. You know, it wasn't, like you said, it's not so clear like, okay, well, hopefully we'll just fall pregnant.
Yeah. Talk about acronyms. Like you start learning about fertility and they have as many acronyms as the queer community. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things that we explored. There's IVF.
Reciprocal IVF.
Yeah, reciprocal IVF, which is where you would carry my egg, which I think is super cool. There's IUI.
At home insemination, which some people do. And there's obviously levels, right? And there's so many factors.
Yes.
To help you decide.
Yeah. To be fair, because of how much it costs, I was like, can we skip the at home? Because we need scientific odds.
Yeah.
We need high odds.
Yeah. So each one, obviously your odds increase.
Yeah.
So just your financial commitment and your medication count.
Yeah. So we met with the doctor and there's a couple of different factors that came into play probably 6 years ago, something like that. I found out I was like perimenopausal. So I've been on hormone replacement for my estrogen levels and all of that since then. And after all this time, very unlikely without massive hormone treatment that I would be able to, what do they call it? Harvest eggs or whatever.
An egg retrieval, yeah.
Yeah, to go through that. And it was really sad at first because I do think that would have been really cool. So there was a little bit of like grieving for me on that because I think, I don't know, I just would have really liked that for us. At the end of the day, it just like the risk was too high and the odds were too low.
I just was going to say, just to kind of sit in that for a minute in terms of the grief and all of that, I think it's important to talk about, right? Like you always knew that you didn't want to carry a baby. But I think knowing that another way for you to have one physically is kind of taken from you, really, I think that is really painful. I even said this in my early 20s before I decided I wanted kids. If the doctor ever said you couldn't, that would be really painful for me. Like, I want to be the one to decide, you know? And we know women who have had hysterectomies for whatever reason and types of things. And even when they're done having children, you know, it's like there's a grieving period, right? It's like I knew I didn't want children anymore. That's why I decided to go through this procedure for whatever reason. But now after, you're still kind of grieving. I think as a woman, there is a little part of you that's like, or can be, if you want to have a family, I think there is a little part of you that feels like, oh, kind of a gut punch, right?
Yeah. And to be fair, it's like if we wanted to take the risk, we couldn't. I didn't feel like we could withstand the, like, hormones like impact you so much. And then
you're already on multiple. So I think just the dynamic between them is really what you were worried about. You know, is that going to push back the progress that you've made to really kind of overhaul your life and your health and everything in the past few years?
Right.
But there was a lot of talk, right? I'm willing to do whatever.
Oh yeah. You were like, let's, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, sure. Sign me up.
But I also want to be here for the long term. Like, I'm turning 37 this year. And I know a lot of women are perimenopausal, but it can be kind of scary. But at the same time, like, I've spent a long time with my doctor, like leveling out my hormones and getting that at a place where like I feel good. And so it was also really scary in that regard. It's like, I want to be here with you and our family for like, and healthy and active for like our whole lives. And you're a little bit younger too. So I think that also played an impact on the decision too. So yeah. So lots of different options. So we moved past reciprocal IVF. We looked at IVF, and then the more that we learned about it with, and we know actually I have many friends who have done it, and it can be really hard on your body. And so we thought that we would start with IUI. And why don't you share what our friend shared with us who has been through IVF, what they shared with us about why they chose IVF, and how we kind of process that.
Yeah. So I think, like you said, we had a lot of conversations, did a lot of research. And I think one of the benefits that our friends shared with us, and that we did consider for a while, was just knowing that all of the embryos, which hopefully would become our children later, would have the same DNA because they'd be my egg and the same donor. Which just kind of comes with an extra sense of security for health concerns and all of that. If you chose like an open donor who they would ever choose to meet later on in their life, if you had 3 children with the same donor, that would be a shared experience through all 3 of them versus having 3 of them with 3 different donors. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So it was more for their sake.
Which I think makes total sense.
I had never thought about it like that before until she said that.
Neither did I. That's actually, that's a great point. So we thought about that for a while. And then we looked at, different options with donors where, you can get a family slot, right? Which means that in the future we could request that they donate to us again, if it's really important for us for our kids to have the same donor, which is ideal. But I think ultimately we just decided it's not the number one most important thing, because obviously kind of the whole thing we're doing here is like, it doesn't have to be genetic to make you a family. My sisters and I are all half siblings, and I've never, like, literally besides this moment that I'm saying that, I never would call them that. Like, I never have felt like, oh, they're a little bit less my sister because we don't have both parents genetically, and we're also open to adoption. So I think all of that's just to say we just decided that it's ideal if that can happen, but it's not a deal breaker for us.
I think it's also even different for your sisters. Like there's not as much of a comparison there in my mind because you're all half sisters, which I'm like, I've never thought that in my life about you guys, but not that that's better or worse because I'm not going to place a value on that.
Totally.
However, there's 3 different male figures all in your
different
life
marriages.
as well. Different marriages, different experiences, which our kids would not have. Right. They would have you and I and then a donor. So I think that's very, very different.
I agree. Yeah. We're their parents and we're the same no matter what that is. But I do totally agree with the health concerns, and that is something to consider.
Okay, how do we go about choosing a donor? What does that look like?
Tons of resources and all.
Yeah, so like I think the way that we looked at it was like health first. So we paid a little bit extra to have the full health panel. That way we could sift through and only choose the donor who had also gone through the extensive health panel that we wanted that matched the one we did for you, which obviously reduces the number of available donors, but it made us feel safer. So that was one of the things. But do you want to kind of talk about how we decided like what we were going to look for?
Yeah. I think, well, we kind of skipped over this, but we decided to do IUI.
Yes. To start, yes.
Yeah. So to start and just quickly, and then we'll go on the donor. We met with the doctor, again, recommended by one of our really good friends. And he kind of just explained that.
Yeah, she's really set us up now that I think about it.
I got like 10 new resources in the text yesterday. Like we're chilling. But that obviously in a perfect world, the only problem between us and a baby is we don't have sperm. So he kind of explained that since we don't have any known signs of infertility, as Nat mentioned, I am young and seemingly healthy and all of that he would recommend IUI, and that in his experience, most people are successful within the first 3 rounds. It's just obviously more natural on your body, and it is much less expensive. I'm not going to lie. That is a big factor, obviously. So we decided to try that, with the caveat that we're willing to do it up to 3 times, and then we'll move to IVF because there is a certain time, right, where you're like, okay, financially, yes, it's less, but it's not if I have to do it, a million times. And,
and I think that part of the decision was like, okay, we can do, like we're working really hard to get out of debt. And so like these, however many rounds of IUI we can do with cash. And then if we went straight to IVF because it's like 10 times more expensive, then that would be a different discussion. So there's like a lot of factors that kind of impacted that.
Yeah, but he made us feel confident in just kind of trying that out and seeing what happens. So we'll let you know. Stay tuned on that. Obviously, next step was, okay, we feel comfortable with this clinic. We feel comfortable with this path. Now we have to pick a donor, which was spooky season for me.
I actually thought it was going to be the weirdest for me, but it was much weirder for you. So we bought a package where you could see the baby picture and the adult picture.
Which I really thought I wanted because I'm thinking like it's pretty rare that you see a not cute baby, in my opinion, but I see not cute men all the time. They're a dime a dozen, And I'm like, oh God, like I just wanted to know, like we're setting the kid up for success.
Yeah. It's funny. Like if you've never been through experience, it's literally like online shopping. You buy a pass to this website, the sperm bank, and then you go in, you put the medical health panel that you want, and then you choose hair color, eye color, ancestry, height, weight. Like there's literally like you can choose.
It's like the Abercrombie website.
Yeah, well, minus the abs. And so when we first got it, we bought the pass where you could see the child and the adult version. And I was like looking, and I would like look at the little kid one, and then she was sitting beside me one time. I was like looking at the kid one, and then I scrolled to the adult. And she's like, "Oh!" Like And it's just shocking. So you can kind of talk about why that bothered you. That did not impact me like that, but for you it did.
Which I really thought was interesting. But just to go back kind of really quick on our, if I may, on our filtering, like choices that we took. Obviously you said like health was the most important. Duh. I think that goes without saying. Like I see a lot of, you know, queer couples where they share this and everyone's like, you should only care about the health. It's like, yeah. No shit, Sherlock. Like, thank you. But we've already got that down. Like, that's an immediate. So now we get to choose. And of course, I want our baby to look like it came from us. I mean, I know it's, you know, going to know, unfortunately, that it didn't.
Wait, people are going to know?
I know. Yeah, sorry. Someone's going to have to tell them. But I want them to look like you. You know, we both have light eyes, so I want light eyes. You have dark hair, dark features, so I want that because then there's a chance it's going to have mine or yours, which is quite limiting. That really brought us down. Apparently dark hair and light eyes is not common. But anyway, yeah, just angel. So all of that to say, you're doing the legwork and you're feeding, you know, you're filtering and all that stuff. And I think, and I really hope I can explain this properly, but when the baby photos are like babies and then they're like maybe small children. It's like
3, 4, 5.
Yeah. Which I do think is important. Like I do want to see what the baby looks like, but I have a normal brain, so I'm looking at that as like a science exercise. Like that's the data that's going to the clinic and then coming to me. Like there's no sexual, and I'm not even thinking about what is coming from, like I'm not associating sperm with this necessarily. Like,
you're not thinking they're going into this clinic and we're going to choose someone who can, you know,
biggest swimmers. Like it was just like, that's very like a science experiment to me. Like data plus my data giving us an egg. Yep. And then all of a sudden I felt like when it was an adult coming in, it was so jarring for me because it made me feel like, oh, now there are 3 adults as part of this. Me, you, and the donor. And
I can't wait until like someone like homophobic's like, because there is.
Yeah, they are. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, there is. Like, obviously I'm not an idiot, but it's just like, it took it for me.
Well, because believe me, if love made sperm, we'd have it.
I mean, barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen right now, but it just took it, I guess, from like a very methodical, scientific, like this is the help we need to have a family, into kind of really putting it in my face. I felt like that there were other people, and I've heard, you know, another podcast staying up that we listen to a lot, and they're going through their fertility journey as well. And they were just saying like, it is emotional. Like obviously, and again, anyone who's not into it, like why are you listening this far? But yeah, I know that we can't make a baby genetically. Yeah, I get it. But it's upsetting. Like there's no way around that. It is a big fat fucking bummer. You know, like I wish we could. So it is sad, right? And then I just felt like, okay, now I'm seeing this like bearded man on the screen and I'm having to think. I keep kind of making fun of our other friends. I'm like, it's kind of gross that you guys like do this willingly. Like I have to go get turkey basted and I'm just like that really grosses me out already. And then I'm thinking like, now I'm looking at like a bearded man on the screen and connecting them.
Well, I think we try not to make a habit about thinking about our friends having sex as well.
Right. But now I was, because I'm thinking about but the bearded man, it was just too much. Like I just felt very invasive. Yeah. Like now there's another person in here. It honestly was jarring. Like I kind of removed myself from the process for like a couple weeks after that.
You did.
And I immediately was like, I don't want to see the adult pictures anymore. I don't think I know. Everyone thinks their kid's good looking, even if they're not. So that's enough for me. Like I'm just going to hold on to that.
That is true. So yes, you didn't like the adult photos.
Yeah, there was a lot of information, but it just grossed me out.
Yeah, I think it's important.
No offense to the donors. I mean, great looking people, but not for me.
Some of them. No, everyone's beautiful in their own way. So we had that experience and I was like, okay, you're choosing from the picture of someone as a child. Mm-hmm. And so what I was like, okay, I had seen this thing and I'm like, okay, I have a great idea. So I used AI to take several pictures of Tami and several pictures of myself from different ages in our life and put them together. And I said, give me what a son would look like and a daughter would look like. And
that just brought me right to tears.
Oh yeah, you should have seen him. So cute. Anyway, so I took that AI version and then went watched it be like so far from what's actual reality. Now we just have this random, but anyway, whatever. It feels true for us. And so then I took that photo and I went online back again and I searched like, for a picture as close to this little boy picture that we had, and found this one donor, and he had, they had dark hair, green eyes, a bachelor.
Favorite combination.
Yes. Bachelor's in economics, which is very similar to myself. They are athletic and musical and a similar temperament. They said he had a lot of empathy. It was one of his person. I'm like, I mean, there you go. That's me reincarnated. So in male version. So that actually kind of simplified the process for us, because then it wasn't so like, you have a lot of pressure because you're like, what if you choose wrong? Or is there wrong or is there right, and all of that. So I'm like, for me, that was fantastic because it just relieved a lot of the pressure. It's like, just give me somebody that looks like this. And so then it became a lot more fun and removed a lot of the like, the pressure from it.
It was fun for me too to have you really take the lead on that, because I just feel like that's the other part of the process. Like I don't know why, like maybe that's whatever, but I just thought it was really kind of fun for you to sort of take the lead, and, you know, then you'd present to me like, you know, they have, you know, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. I thought that was kind of a fun thing that we did together. I like the way
it
that
is.
we did.
Yeah, it was fun. And I think too, it's like on a deeper level, which we don't have time for today, but on a deeper level, it's like if you're the non-carrying parent, you like want so bad to also contribute. And of course, for the rest of your life, you're going to contribute as a parent. But in the early stage of the process, when we're going through this, I was struggling to find like, well, how do I contribute here? How do I like do something that's meaningful? And so I think that meant a lot to me that you let me kind of lead the donor search and then help with some of the research and come up with ideas. And it's like, because you're offering your brain and your body, and I'm just offering my brain. And so I do think that's something to be considered. Like if you're going through this process with your spouse and you're the same sex, to really think about like the different ways that both of you can contribute and show up for each other that, you know, make both of you feel like it really matters a lot.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I'm excited to see kind of what happens on it. You know, if you're newly married, or I guess it's been a year. Is that newly married? Or any woman in her 30s, really, it's like every time you're on the phone with someone, they're like, when's a baby coming? And I'm like, can you just wait a second? But we're excited to be kind of sharing this process and talking about what we're doing, and we'll continue to do so as the next steps come. There's so much to talk about and share. So we're really looking forward to kind of sharing our journey with everyone and getting tips and tricks from people who have done it before. And hopefully we can give that to people who do it after us. And just excited to grow our family besides our furry son that you guys just saw.
Yeah, me too. We're not going to tell you where we're at in the process. That will come with time.
There could be tequila in the cup, and that would be okay. So that's where we're at-ish. Well, it wouldn't be okay because it's 8:10 in the morning, but
what?
I'm just saying we're not pregnant right now.
Okay. Well,
you guys, it has to become
can't
obvious.
Drink tequila. So stay tuned, and you will start to figure that out the more that we release information and share the journey with you. So thanks for listening today. And just to confirm, there is no tequila in the cup, and for multiple reasons, including your job. And
maybe thinking with it.
Anyway, hope you guys have a great week. Thanks for listening.